السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jazakumullah khairan for your patience, and I'm so happy to have Sheikh Abdullah Al-Andulisi with us here. Jazakallah khairan. He arrived like a week ago, and the moment he landed, he didn't stop. He was all over the place. Jazakallah khairan. He just came from Tapo. Literally, he had almost no sleep at all. Drinking caffeine to stay awake. For those who doesn't know, Sheikh Abdullah, mashallah, may Allah is famous, and may Allah give him sincerity. Sheikh Abdullah Ansari is an international speaker, and mashallah, he dedicated his time to refute against any wrong assumptions about Islam. He's lecturing about Islamic teachings and how to have Islam as a way of life. He's defending for the Palestinian cause, mostly on all the international mainstream, BBC, Al Jazeera, BBC Arabic. You will find him there trying to educate and to defend and to teach people about the right story and the right narrative. We're so humbled to have you among us, Sheikh. Jazakallah khairan. And yeah, without any further ado, over to you, Sheikh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا الكريم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين وصحبه الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's my pleasure to be here, and I've heard about this masjid is on native Maori land. Is that correct? Yes. I found it was absolutely amazing, actually. SubhanAllah. I've actually over the years read quite a lot about the Maori. I'm very fascinated by different cultures and traditions and peoples. And SubhanAllah, then coming to New Zealand, I was really eager to meet the natives of Aotearoa, right? And I did quite a lot of research. I've done enough research to know that apparently that's the name originally of the North Island. It's now become the name for like both islands, but I actually forgot to pronounce the South Islands, but Aotearoa is like for short for the whole thing. So SubhanAllah, I was very excited to encounter that there was also our brothers and sisters converting to Islam from the native population of and I was very fascinated by this, SubhanAllah. And they had many concepts and ideas which were very similar to ours. One word which is very popular around the world. There's a couple of words. In fact, the Maoris have affected quite a lot of the words in common parlance around the world. Like, for example, anyone who plays computer games, and one word used is typically used for games that might have use magic or use some kind of power level or something. It's mana, right? And that's just a Maori word, you know. Also taboo. It's like prohibited, comes from tapu. If I'm pronouncing it properly, do forgive my mispronunciations. Which is Maori words, subhanAllah. So you might think that, you know, these people on an island which is right into the Pacific and far from the rest of the world, the native population here who are, you know, minority, unfortunately, within their own land, but their language still affected the rest of the world. Everyone now uses it. So people try to translate to mana as like legitimacy or honor, rank, or something. So I think, power. I think a very good Arabic word is izzah. I think izzah translates mana very well because it captures all the same things that you get in the word mana, which is power, prestige, authority, respect, honor. It's all captured in the same word. It's very perfect, actually. Got very good translation. SubhanAllah. So I was invited here by Hearts for Palestine to talk about how to advocate for Palestinian rights. I have a particular specialism. I'm not sure if I'm good at that specialism or not, but it's just something I specialize in, or one of the specialisms I specialize in, which is research on history and producing refutations of falsehoods, right? Breaking down falsehoods. The aim of falsehoods to be believed, they're not meant to be something which is completely crazy and outlandish, completely radical. A falsehood has to have a little tiny bit of truth in it so that you can swallow the rest of the falsehood with it. So they mix the truth with the falsehood so you can swallow it. And the point of falsehood, what is Barton, cover, is so that it makes what should be simple, the simple truth, complicated. Right? So you don't see it. Right? You don't see the simple truth. So I was invited by Hearts for Palestine for a fundraiser, and may Allah help and protect them. Wonderful, wonderful brothers. I've gotten to know them every single day, more and more. My heart's grown fond of them more and more, mashallah, and they've been very hospitable. Please, please, help them in their endeavors to raise money and help the Palestinians who are being massacred by the thousands in Gaza. So do help them. But the things that how I contribute, my contribution is refutations and arguments against Zionism, and to make what is complicated has been made complicated, make it clear again. That's my simple point. And one of the parallels that I noticed, because what the Zionists will say, they'll say, oh, you know, this land belongs to us, the land of Palestine, and the Palestinians, they are just Arabs, they're invaders there, they don't belong to them, we're the real natives of that land, those kinds of things, right? But the reality is, of course, that the Palestinians have been living there for 4,000 years continuously, at minimum, right? Genetic studies will go all the way up to 4,000 years, shows that. They are natives there. And of course, people from Europe who follow the Jewish religion, yes, they might have some Middle Eastern DNA in it. No one's denying that. But they've been in Europe for about 2,000 years, right? And they've intermarried, and they're as much European as they are Middle Eastern, minimum, half and half at least. So what gives them a better right than the Palestinians to land, such that the Palestinians have to move out the way? And if they don't, they'll get shot and bombed and arrested and put into prison camps with arbitrary detention. Often people talk about, oh, what about the hostages? And I say, what about the 3,000 hostages in Palestine who are, these are Palestinians which were arrested not for a crime, but just for arbitrary detention, administrative detention, sorry, which is arbitrary. They're just arrested, no charge, held indefinitely, right? No one talks about them. I often said, because some Zionists have tried to make you ignore what's happening about the Palestinians, they put up these posters of all the hostages that were taken on October 7th and say, have you seen this person? They put it up in every single city around the world. Not that you can find these hostages in these cities. You know, you usually put up a lost poster to find someone that's lost in that city, right? You know, but they're not in the city. They're not going to be in Auckland, are they? They're not going to be in New York, are they? They're going to, you know, be in Gaza. So if you want to play the game, why don't we make 3,000 individual posters and then multiply them for all the Palestinian prisoners, hostages that have been arrested without no charge, without any charge, and put that up everywhere. Let everyone see that and say, have you seen these people? You can find them in Israeli jails. Yeah, why don't we do that, right? So this is what I kind of do, right? I try to counteract those who try to complicate things by simply just showing the simple truth. Right? And I have a friend of mine who says, he said really good one-liners. One of his famous one-liners I found amazing was, he said, sometimes the hardest thing to explain to people is the bloody obvious. And it's true, because they've been twisting it. So, but I think there's a key lesson in this for us, and I think there's something that I've been very heartened to see, is that once you've seen And because of what's happened to the Palestinians, to some extent, it has woken up the Muslims worldwide more than before. Yes, they've seen Gaza bombings where the state of Israel bombards Gaza 3-4 times in the past, attacking Lebanon. They've seen all this stuff happen many times, shooting kids in the West Bank. They've seen this happen. But now, for them to be able to kill thousands of thousands in such a quick time, with no consideration for international scrutiny, and America now being obvious and clearly more hypocritical than ever before, right? It's really shaking up Muslims to say, wait a second, this is really serious. And to an extent, we've actually let it get this serious. I'll get to that in a second. But what I've seen and what I've been very heartened to see is that Muslims are coming out on the streets on the weekend, marching and demonstrating, joined by many non-Muslims who equally are appalled and disgusted with what they're seeing. The pictures and the videos coming out of Gaza of dead kids and dead women and children, people, video clips that were leaked where Israeli soldiers go into a house, they shoot an old man with no weapon on him next to his bed. He's just let him bleed out, basically. Shooting kids in the West Bank, more videos come up. They start to become rougher and brutal in the area. There's not even no Hamas in that place, right? So this is actually has inspired people to really come out and say that we can't let this happen, right? This is a genocide where you can kill a whole ethnic group or part of an ethnic group to kick them out of an area, right? To massacre them. And what I was reminded of, and I think this is quite fascinating because you guys obviously from New Zealand, there are some parallels. There are some parallels with the history of this country. When a colonial force comes to a country and they want land, and they have lots of settlers to come to that land, and they somehow feel that the land somehow belongs to them, right? And they use some trick to say it belongs to them, like the trick of the Treaty of Waitangi, right? Waitangi, yeah, where there was two versions of it. What the version to the Maoris was meant to be one of almost like a corporation of equals, sharing a type of sharing authority, but the Maoris to retain their lands, their treasures, right? The place that belonged to them. And on the other side, the British writing in the English version that the Maoris cede all sovereignty to the British Crown. Right? I don't think any people would cede sovereignty to the British Crown. And this, the equivalent of the Treaty of Waitangi is the Balfour Declaration, which gave the land of Palestine, said that it was given to one ethnic group, Jewish Europeans, to make it their homeland, quote unquote. It doesn't matter that the vast majority of the people are Palestinian. At the time it was given, 93% of the population was non-Jewish Palestinian. Although, to be fair, everyone that's lived there, including Muslim, Christians, and Jews, before the British took over, are all Palestinian. But it's not about Jews, it's about these Europeans coming over. It doesn't matter that they have some ancestry somewhere in the Middle East, right? They've been 2,000 years in Europe, intermarried Europeans, they look like Europeans, their culture is European, they speak European languages, German, French, Russian, and they brought European systems, and they were supported by the European states. They're European. It doesn't matter if you use it as a pretext. Oh well, this somehow belongs to us in some way, shape, or form. Right? It reminds me of the Mormons. The Mormons in America, taking areas of Indian land, and they claimed that they actually the original Native American Indians were white Europeans. It's actually true. This is what they claim, right? And that the Native Americans, as you know them to be, they were somehow some invaders and so on and so forth. So you're not kicking out natives, you're kicking out invaders, right? And it actually belongs to white people, right? Now, I'm not saying that, as I said, I'm not saying that Jewish Europeans didn't have maybe some ancestry. Some are converts, but some have some ancestry. But it doesn't mean that they can have better right to a land than those who've been continuously living there for thousands and thousands of years, right? And just to put in perspective, 2,000 years, I mean, that's longer than the English have actually been in England, right? That was before that they were in Germany. You know, so should we send them back? Probably, but the Welsh might say yes, you should send them back. Right. Anyway, so but this has drawn a need for us to actually be steadfast and work for the Palestinians, because you might think, how do we change the situation of Palestinians? How do we rescue the Palestinians? I'll draw your attention to South Africa. South Africa, for decades and decades, was controlled by a small white minority, right? And they didn't let the vast majority of the population, black South Africans, vote in elections, have official South African citizenship, and they even made these fake small states for them within South Africa called Bantustans, where they could say, well, their state, they are parts of these states. They're not part of our state, South Africa, right? Little reservations, like Indian reservations. This is where they actually are, right? We don't have to give them official citizenship because they have these small citizenships of these small states. But they would only let them out if they want to work in the cities for cheap labor, construction. Maybe then afterwards they go back to their Bantustans. Right, that's what the situation was. So the world, the Western countries, England, America, they all supported South African state. Also, surprise, surprise, Israel supported the South African state. They were good friends. They also worked on nuclear weapons together, but that's a different discussion. Right, and so much so that Nelson Mandela was part of the African National Congress Party, was declared a terrorist internationally and on the American terror list, right? So he was declared a terrorist by the United States of America and Britain. And it's so much so, actually, that after, there was a change in South Africa and it became the president of South Africa and so on and so forth, and he was going to do a diplomatic visit to America, they had forgotten to take his name off the terrorist list. Right? Oh, sorry, we have to take his name off the terrorist list, right? Nelson Mandela, right? And that was okay to some extent. ANC had a parallel group called Spear of the Nation, Mkhonto MCs, which conducted what you might call terror attacks in South Africa, right? So they had a parallel militant side to that, but the point that's beside the point. What changed? How did it change from this white-controlled and exclusive voting rights for white people situation to one where everyone had equal rights and the equal right to vote in South Africa? What changed? Can anyone tell me what you think changed? The white people in that land just woke up one day and grew a conscience. Okay, there were some whites that were against what the government was doing and they disliked it, what have you, but wasn't a significant, wasn't majority. Can anyone know?
International condemnation.
International condemnation from who? Sorry? So New Zealand single-handedly changed the situation in South Africa. Well,
yeah, I think there was also what's happening now from the students as well. It started from the universities, started an action, and it's followed by other governments has to follow. The international movement against the racism.
Well, there was a few steps, but yes, it started out by students in many Western countries demonstrating and protesting and raising awareness as to what the white South Africans were doing to the black South Africans. And that includes, for example, when black South Africans would go out in demonstrations and protests, beating them down, shooting them, arresting people, torturing those they arrested, same things which the state of Israel is doing in Palestine today. Exact same things. If you remember in 2019, the Great March of Return in Gaza, where many of the Palestinians wanted to peacefully march right up into the wall that surrounds them, their prison wall, basically, because many of them, a significant portion of them, actually comes from the place which the UN calls the State of Israel now. That's where what families were from. Their father was from, their grandfather was from, or they were from, if they were that old, if they were old enough, right? And they just wanted to march back, but symbolic, and they had no weapons, basically. Right? And what happened? Right, over 200 of them shot, basically. That's what happened to them. The South Africans did the same thing to the black South Africans, and this is what happened. But the students rose up and they started to be insistent on the rights of the black South Africans, showing people what's actually happening in South Africa. This is before the internet, guys. The kids are like, what? What's before the internet? It's like, was that when the dinosaurs were living around or something? No, not quite. Right. And then that created media attention. That created the change in public opinion in the West. And the greatest force in any human society is public opinion. Right? Can't go against it. Right? Why do some prime ministers, they resign due to public opinion going against them, even though according to the constitution they can still continue their term, right? Because public opinion is the strongest force there is within human society. Okay, so then what can you do? Well, the simple question is, why can't we do the exact same thing? Right? And I'll give you a more local example as well. Of course, since the great land thefts that occurred in Aotearoa against the Maori, land was taken from them, confiscated, or there was claims there was a purchase happening, even though not everyone, it was collectively owned, and they could just get one person's signature and say, yeah, I'll sell it off, or they bribe that one, just need to bribe one person, and then they'll take the whole land, despite the fact that it was collectively owned by a whole bunch of other people. They tried all these different shenanigans and things, and of course, wars and killing and things like this. This occurred in, this country. And of course, there was great discrimination, it still is, from what I've been reading. The treatment of Maoris they're treated very differently compared to the white Aotearoans. And so much so that they're more likely to go to jail for longer terms for doing the same crimes as their white counterparts, more likely to have the police take out a gun on them in similar situations, a whole bunch of things. I was reading this kind of stuff. What did they do in this country? Some of you might know already this answer. Some of you youngsters don't know this, right? But in the 1970s, there was these Maori protest movements and activism where they demanded their rights. They demanded reparations, compensation, apology for the things about their treatment, right? There was a famous lady, I'm pronouncing her name probably, Fina Cooper, if I'm getting her name correct. She went from one part of the island, she did a long march to the other island for Maori rights. And after much campaigning in the 1990s, earned an apology from Queen Elizabeth II herself, right? I don't remember Queen Elizabeth apologizing for anything, right? That's quite significant. And following up with compensation, it was offered 120 million, which is not, it's peanuts, as they say, it's not much compared to how much land was lost, but it was the beginning of renegotiating and having settlements, agreements, returning back land and so on and so forth to the Maoris, and that was with activism. The Palestinians need you to be active for them, right? The state of Israel doesn't let journalists into Gaza, right? They don't let journalists into Gaza. And if you are a journalist and they know you're a journalist, you're not long for this world, right? They'll strike you and blow you up and kill you. If you're an aid worker who's a British citizen and white, they'll still kill you, right? Heck, if you're even a hostage that's released, or you've escaped, right? You're an Israeli Jewish hostage, and you're waving a white flag, but they can't tell at a distance that you're Jewish. They'll shoot you anyway. They're thinking you're Arab, right? Yeah, that's the Palestinian situation. They can't do activism from where they are. All they can do is try to survive as best they can. You are in the place that you can have a voice for them. The State of Israel has an invisible, but not so invisible, umbilical cord, so to speak, to the United States of America, to Western countries. It can only survive in the situation, in the political system that it has, which ignores Palestinian rights. It can only survive because there's public opinion changing. And this is where you and many millions of others like you in the West can come in. You have to have sabr. And I know the translation of sabr usually is, okay, I want to tell you what the translation of sabr is. Sabr.
Patience.
Patience. Well, you would think that, right? But patience kind of denotes like doing nothing and waiting for something, you know? That's what the English word patience usually is. Just wait, don't do nothing, just wait for things to change.
Relentless.
Huh?
Relentless. Change.
Perseverance, yes. There's another word as well. Steadfastness, right? Because there's a hadith from the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that to paraphrase, to those who are fighting on jihad, have sabr. Fighting jihad is not doing nothing, and then having sabr while doing so. So what does it mean? It means what you're doing it, you keep doing. You be persistent. You be steadfast and have perseverance on what you're doing until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the success. And also you try to improve, you try to make plans and strategies and things, but you keep at the general activity you're doing until you get the success. That's what you need to have for their sake, for the sake of the Palestinians. They don't have a choice. For them, their sabr is relying, having tawakkul min Allah, having reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trying to survive. But our sabr is giving of our free time when we're not working or we're not spending time with family. It's to give our free time to make sure that the world doesn't forget them and that the world sees what's happening to them, reminding the world of this great crime. And if you are persistent, just like Fina Cooper, just like Nelson Mandela, just like those still students in the 1960s and 70s and so on and so forth, although the civil rights movement, the Black civil rights movement in the United States of America, if you are persistent and you maintain your cause, you will be successful.
We will make a bank call and then continue.
Okay.
Making the bank call.
Sure. Okay.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
There's one major, elephant in the room in all this. If anyone ever heard that strange saying, some people's like, "What? Is there an elephant in the room? Can you see it?" It's like, yeah, you? I need to lose weight. Anyway, too much lahma. Okay. There's an expression in English, I mean, you might have heard of it, the elephant in the room. It means that, imagine like there's all these people, we're talking, we're in a room and we're discussing things and what have you, and there's a big, massive elephant in the room that no one's talking about, but it's just right there, like it's right in front of everyone's faces, and we all just pretend it doesn't exist. Okay, the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the situation in the Muslim world. Now, if I were to say that the Muslim world is in a time of jahadiyah or ignorance, it is mutakhallif, it is backward, everyone says that. It's not a big mystery. But the problem is that not everyone knows what that means exactly. The devil is in the definition, as they say. If you don't know how to define a word, if you don't know the word. And if you don't, and words are about reality, words are about describing reality. So if you don't know how to define a word, and words describe reality, then you don't know reality. That's basically what I discovered after many years of just studying words, studying descriptions. And in the Muslim world, what we're seeing today is many divided countries, not created by the Muslims per se, for the most part, but they were created by outsiders that came in, had a little map of the Muslim world, drew it different pieces, probably while they were drinking the brandy, and then they said, all right, agreed whose flags and names of countries go where and when, and then everyone, and now you guys take on these flags and take on these names, and then you become proud of them and you become patriotic to these names that perhaps one Englishman and one Frenchman just drew with a pen while they were drinking alcoholic beverages. And this is pretty much, that's one issue. But there's another issue, which is also the fact that these leaders in the Muslim world don't seem to care about what the Palestinians are going through. I mean, if you make the comparison, you might say, oh, they're too weak to do anything individually. Maybe, but collectively they're not. They could all go into a conference, it wouldn't take long, and say, all right, guys, let's pick like in NATO, let's pick one head commander, let's get the best commander we can. We'll substitute all our militaries under this commander, we'll pool our resources, we'll do something. Right? It doesn't mean you have to go charging in, but you can cut all the naval routes to quote unquote the state of Israel. You can start causing trouble by preventing planes going there. You can cut the air routes down there. You can start making life very difficult for them. right? And they can't fight the entire Middle East simultaneously, right? There's a very powerful country as well. Turkey's got quite modern military, you know. Pakistan has its own military arms, industry, and a few other countries, Egypt has actually modern tanks and a whole bunch of things, right? Collectively, they've got quite a lot of stuff, okay? And they've got quite a lot of people, quite a lot of soldiers. They could do something if they really wanted to, but they don't want to. Why is that? Why is that the case? And we keep asking ourselves, oh, they're just corrupt, they're just, just sinful people. And it's like, but how comes for the last 100 years, that's what's been every ruler in the Muslim world? Is that a big coincidence? That every single ruler is just like that? A big coincidence? And how comes in the Muslim world, Muslims themselves don't seriously demand and call for unity? If there was public opinion behind it, strong public opinion behind it, it would happen. But it doesn't happen. And why is that? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he left us an institution. It was an institution for our defense. He said that the Imam is the shield. It's the shield behind which the Ummah fight and defend itself. We have another word for this, the successorship he's the first Imam of the Muslims, the Muslim Jama'ah, and the successor to this in Arabic is called the Khilafah. The institution is called Khilafah. The individual who succeeds is called the Khalifa, right? And their job is very simple. They unite the affairs of the Muslims and they defend the Muslims, and they declare Allah's kalam to be the highest, the most important. They fight for it to be the highest. And we had this for 1,300 years. And you might say, well, if it was so powerful, and some people, unfortunately, even some people call themselves scholars, tried to downplay this, even though every classical scholar in the history of Islam, every classical scholar said it is a fard to have a khilafah. It is, in fact, as Abu Hanifa said, it is the mother of all obligations. We're talking about collective obligations, I suppose. Of all the collective ones, it's the highest because it's government, it's organization, it is pooling our resources together, it is the unity of the Jama'ah. If you don't have Khilafah and you're separating to different firaq, factions, there is no Jama'ah. The Jama'ah isn't just like, oh, are we all part of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Well, you might be Ahlul Sunnah, but you're not in a Jama'ah, right? You can't say that if there's 4 different Muslims and they're in their homes and they all share the same madhab and they all agree on all the same opinions, and it's time for Jummah, but they stay in their homes. They can't say it's okay, we're part of a Jama'ah because we agree with each other on some opinions. Like, no, that's not Jummah. Jummah is you go to the masjid and you go into a Jama'ah. Otherwise, you're not part of a Jama'ah. There's no Jama'ah forms. And you can't have a Jama'ah. Right? That's what the classical scholars said. The Jama'ah is when Muslims politically unite into one state. That's the Jama'ah. And then they have one Imam. Right? We know Hudayfa bin Yaman asked the Prophet Muhammad about the future, about the good times and the bad times. You might know this narration, right? But people don't ponder upon that narration. So he asks, what will happen after, the good and the bad, and eventually Prophet Muhammad said there'll be a time where there'll be people calling to the gates of Jahannam, right? Calling to the gates of Jahannam, or there will be leaders whose hearts are like shaitan, right? And he was asked, what do I do then? And he goes, because there's 2 versions. The most popular version is, the more supported version is the one that says there'll be people calling to Jahannam, right? And he asked, what do I do? And the Prophet Muhammad said, cling to the Jama'ah and its Imam, singular, right? And then Hudayfa bin Yaman asked, what if there is no Jama'ah and no Imam? If Jama'ah just means Muslims, then that would include Hudayfa, you know, and Hudayfa wouldn't exist. But the Jama'ah means there's no united Muslim body. So what did the Prophet Muhammad say in response? Do you remember this narration? Separate from all the firaq, even if you have to eat the roots of trees. Meaning don't attach yourself, in a sense, to any of these factions. Because none of these factions are the Jama'ah, and none of these factions are your faction. You separate from yourself. And each of these countries in the Muslim world are firaq. Firaq isn't about like different madhabs or whatever. No. It's about these factions. Egypt, Saudi, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Algeria, Morocco, UAE. These are the firaq. And it's interesting, you know, when the Uthmanis, when the Ottomans, on the death of the last Abbasid Caliph, and the Ottomans declared themselves to be the Khilafah, the continuation of the Khilafah, there was a fatwa by Lutfi Pasha who said that give bay'ah to the Uthmani, give bay'ah to the Khalifa Suleiman. He is the Imam behind which you protect yourself from the firaq and from those who are calling to Jahannam. Right? So they answered the hadith of Hudayfa bin Yaman. Right? Without that, we are vulnerable. We have no shield. And the Ottomans, even in World War I, they were pushing back the British. What's New Zealand's foundational mythos about? Its foundational, you know, history was about the Gallipoli invasion of Ottoman Khilafah, which they failed, and with the Australians and with the British, hundreds of thousands were dead and were pushed back by the Ottomans. But did you know that there was 3 battles in Gaza that you might not be aware of? Right? 3 battles in Gaza. The Ottomans pushed back and beat the British twice in Gaza, right? While at the same time fighting the Russian Empire as well. So that's the British Empire with all its Indian troops and colonial troops and pouring hundreds of thousands of bodies into the Middle East, right? As well as Russians pouring hundreds of thousands of bodies from the north. The Ottomans were fighting both simultaneously, and they were holding the line. In fact, they managed to make a stalemate with Russia. Russia then made a treaty and ended the fight. They stalemated with Russia. But Britain really wanted Palestine and really wanted to conquer into the Middle East. The Ottomans destroyed an entire British army in Iraq. By the way, that's always forgotten about. They moved a massive army there, got destroyed, wiped out, and captured completely. But on the 3rd British attempt, so the British, okay, they tried twice, they couldn't get it. Waiting for a bit, they made a deal with Sharif Hussein in the Hijaz, the Arabs of Hijaz, saying, hey, don't you like, you know, you don't like being under a Turkish Caliph. You want to be under Turks. You're Arabs, you're better. You're better than Turks, right? Why don't you, I'll tell you what, if you do what we want you to do, we will give you all the Middle East as one Arabic land, and we will make you, this will mean that you can become, if you want, the Arab Caliph, right? An Arab Caliph. And so, you know, obviously Sharif was saying like, wow, I can now have that Middle East for me. Great, okay, I will do what you want. And they started to attack the Ottomans from behind, right? And then the British launched the 3rd battle for Gaza, and that's when they won, right? But before that, the Uthmani Khilafah was pushing back. It was a shield. And it meant that anyone who tried to invade the Middle East would have to pay hundreds of thousands of dead bodies to go in, you know. So always get a visa, right? Never go without consent, right? But now you can invade the Middle East for nothing, right? And you can bomb and kill Muslims like nothing, right? That's our situation. And guess what, guys? It's not going to change unless we change it. No one's going to respect Muslims anywhere in the world until we have the return of the shield that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ left to us. It's not going to get better for the Kashmiris or for the 200 million Muslims in India. Right? You might think, well, if you had a Khilafah, how would that change then? How would you rescue them? It's like, well, where does India's trade routes go through? Right? Suez, or it trades with the Middle East, it trades with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, it trades with all these countries. And also the Malacca Strait. Who controls that? Malaysia and Indonesia. 80% of China's trade goes through that, by the way. And they're oppressing the Uyghurs. If we had a simple, united body, the Jamaat reconstituted, we don't even need to invade India or invade China. We simply say, if you touch any Muslims, a single hair on a Muslim's head, we will cut off your trade. And you will be poor and starve or go into poverty. Right? In fact, the whole reason why China is actually is suppressing the Uyghurs in East Turkestan is because they're making trade routes along it. They want to have peace and quiet where they control that area and to eliminate all resistance, to make trade routes which are going straight into the Muslim world. The Belt and Road Initiative, they call it. And the same with Burma as well. Muslims, if we were united, we would be respected. We would have manna, izzah, right? But we don't, because we are divided, even though this is actually going against what the Prophet Muhammad taught us. And I'll kind of finish off with saying, this reminded me of something, and there's by the way, there's reasons why we're not united. There's reasons for this, and in other lectures I've discussed this, why as Muslims we view Islam. The reason why we not take it as any kind of priority is because we view Islam as part of our lives. And you might think, what? How is viewing Islam as part of your life the reason why we are so backward? I thought it would be the opposite, no? Say no. It's because you view Islam as part of your life that we are so backward. Like, what? Are you sure? I thought that doesn't sound right to me. Listen to the words. You view Islam as, you're taught Islam, and you learnt Islam from your parents and your elders as a part of your life, not your purpose in life. There's a difference between the two. Part of your life is this. You're told by your parents, your society, your clan, your tribe, whomever, Jazakallah, thank you. You're told, don't be a loser, right? Be a winner. What's a winner? What does it look like to be a winner? I usually kind of ask the kids this because the kids will tell you exactly what they've been taught by their parents, right? But we're running out of time. I've done this in the previous session. I was like, kids, what has your father said to you? You know, and then they say, I've got to do this, you know, do my homework, do this, whatever, or what? Like, or I'll be a loser in life. You know, if I don't get all these things and get successful, get like house, money, comfort, family, kids, you know, or why? Well, if I don't, I'll be a loser. I don't want to be a loser. But at the same time, of getting all these things, also, don't forget to pray and fast. And, you know, maybe recite the Quran, it's very good. And, you know, say Shahada, do, and go Hajj, and so on and so forth. Yeah, pay your zakat if you were actually earning enough. That's how you were taught Islam. Most of you, the vast majority of you, you learned Islam. It was a list. It was part of a list of things that was expected of you growing up. And you might say, well, okay, but what are we meant to like not have material things? You say we should run into a cave and become like monks or something like that. No, none of that whatsoever. But I want you to just see the difference here of how someone would think they taught that Islam is part of their life and who were taught that Islam is their purpose in life. If you're taught that success for you looks like that you must have a comfortable life with car, house, money, and so on and so forth, and let's say, for example, you know, you're doing business and Islam tells you that you have to be truthful. You have to be honest. But if I'm honest, I might not get a good profit margin, and all of my competitors would get, they're lying and things, and they're going to get more profit than me, and I might not do well in my business. And I don't want to be a loser, because I was taught by my parents that it's bad to be a loser. So I'll have to lie, but don't worry, Allah will understand, because I was taught that I have to try my best to be a winner, and lying is required for me to help me be a winner. And so they will justify lying. And in the Muslim world today, lying, or at least being untruthful at many times in many situations, is now so common that people often now say, "Uqsum billah, wallahi, wallahi," right, all the time to when they speak, because you have to swear to God just to be believed on normal everyday things you're talking about. Whereas for the Sahabas, people looking at each other like, you, not you. Right? It's like, no, don't judge each other. But I want you to understand why it's like this, right? The Sahabas would only swear to Allah very rarely, and for something really serious, like when saying that they heard a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And that's why in the Muslim world, there's corruption. Not because it's just a big coincidence that not everyone, but there's massive corruption, but because in the Muslim world, everyone's trying to get ahead with these things they're taught makes them winners, but not everyone can win, right? And so if you're a leader in the Muslim world, you're only a leader not because the people gave you bay'ah, because they was consulted, because you're implementing Quran and Sunnah, because obviously you were put there by the foreign powers and they don't want you to follow Quran and Sunnah. So instead, you're the leader because you have some mates here who are influential, who are supporting you. But they can't support you for free because they have their own mates that they have to look after. So I have to take, if I was a leader, I'll take some oil, some money from natural resources from the state, and I have to pay it to these guys to continue supporting me. And then they have to pay it to their guys to continue supporting them. Otherwise, they're not longer influential or useful, right? Because they have to have the ability to do favors for people, and so on and so on and so forth. So because there's no higher principles within Muslim society, the only big reason for power is how much favors you can do, and kickbacks, and doing favors to get support, right? And of course, you don't have infinite money, so you have to give it to only a few people. You have to give it to the important people, those who can support you, who have the power. You can't give it to the rest of the poor people in the streets or whatever. You can't give it to them. It's not enough. So you have to prioritize on those, because they're the ones that keep you in power. And if you're not in power, of course, in the Muslim world, and someone else is in power, then you don't matter, and no one's going to respect your rights. So then you'll do whatever it takes to stay in power, including arresting people, oppressing people, torturing people, killing people. Because if you're not in power, someone else is in power, they're going to do the same thing you're going to be doing, right? And you're going to be ignored, right? This is the definition of anarchy. Anarchy is not when you have no government. Anarchy when there's no higher usul, no higher principles, no higher foundations for society. It's just whoever has power. That's what keeps us backward. And the reason is because we don't view Islam as a purpose in life. We view Islam as part of our life. And Islam is only taught to us only what it can do for how you personally pray, or if you're feeling sad, to complain to Allah about the things that affect you. But that's about it. It doesn't go beyond your personal prayer or ibadah. It doesn't have any solutions for the world. It doesn't have any guidance for politics. None of that stuff, right? And was any of you ever taught political fiqh in schools and universities within the Muslim world, like how to guide society by Islamic laws, how riba is prohibited, and what's the alternative to riba? What's an alternative economic system? No one knows, because no one really is taught it. It's not important, or because people don't even think there is an actual solution. So in Islam, there is these solutions, but we don't know it. So what does a purpose in life look like? And I'll end on this. The Sahabas believed in Islam as their purpose in life. What does that mean? That means that for them, Allah's pleasure was the highest and only concern, and they sought Allah's pleasure with knowledge of how to attain it in every area of the dunya. So a Sahabi might think, I want to get money and success with money, not because I want to impress my parents or society or so on, but because I can do so much sadaqah jariyah with that money. I can invest it. Maybe I can set up a waqf. Maybe I can, because I want Allah to have mercy on me and alleviate my obstacles and pains, I'm going to set up a new institution called a Bimaristan, a hospital, right, from the Persian house of sickness, right, where it's a waqf. Anyone can have free treatment down there, and I will get all the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I often describe that the Muslim is a thawab capitalist, right? How to multiply their rewards, right? I want to have a house so that, yeah, safety and security for my family, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires me to provide for them. So I can please Allah by getting a house, not so I can show it off to my neighbors, or I can show it off to the friends, or I can whatever. I want to have children, lots of children. Why? Not because I want to boast of my children to people, or my father will be proud of me. No, I want to have children so that my children will be a sadaqah jariyah. I can train them up, make them better than I was, make them leaders, make them soldiers, fighters, make them inventors, technicians. I want to study civil engineering. Why? Not because it's a good career that gets good pay. No, I want to see if I can improve the infrastructure of the Muslim world and make it efficient with the resources it has to hand, so that we become altogether stronger, so that our economy and our armies are more powerful, and so that they can defend the defenseless around the world. The Islamic World Project, taking La ilaha illallah to the entire world, is not just simply it's not simply just I'm giving dawah and speaking, but also dawah through example. People would convert to Islam by simply looking at the example of Muslim civilization, like the Malays and the Indonesians or the West Africans. There was no armies of jihad coming there invading them. They all converted to Islam because they saw how advanced Islamic civilization was. Right? And that was the most populous Muslim country in the world today is what? It's Indonesia. 250 million. And there was no invasions by armies of jihad there, none at all. They converted by example. So as Muslims, we need to relearn Islam as our purpose in life. That means detailed knowledge about how does Islam solve poverty? How is it better than capitalism and communism? What ways can it provide for human needs that is superior to the current situations and systems of the world today? There are some amazing ones. I've done some lectures on this. You can Google it if you'd like to see it. There's also a program by the institute I work with, the I3 Institute. You Google it on Instagram or what have you. They do a course called the Muslim Blueprint Program, which literally teaches Islam A to Z, from not just Aqidah, but all the, and Tajweed and so on, but all the way up to Islamic politics, Islamic economics, how Islam provides practical solutions to the world today, the Islamic history, and how to take lessons that can apply to today, and how to comprehensively revive Khilafah and re-establish and revive the Muslim world through intellectual change, based on the works of Ibn Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun talked about revival, how to do revival. You must know Ibn Khaldun as well, classical scholar. So the Muslim Blueprint Program, please do that. But as I said, brothers and sisters, if we revive ourselves, we bring back our shield, guess what? We won't need America, Britain, and someone to solve the situation in Palestine, to save the Palestinians. We can bring our own special peace process based on our history of things that did work. I call it the Salahuddin or Sultan Baybar's peace process, the one that brought real peace to the Middle East when the last time the Europeans came to Palestine and colonized it. And inshallah, May we realize this solution again, and may you guys, especially you youth, be in the forefront of leading that solution. Inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's time for salah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, for this beautiful speech. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from you and you reward you abundantly. Jazakallah khairan, and now it's time for Isha prayers.